they say you have no right, you prove that you do by going back to the river.
Oh, hey, 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 oh, 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 hey, hey.
All the European nations that came to these shores, and then the United States later, signed treaties with Indian tribes. And there's a basic reason for that. Governments don't do business through memoranda of understanding or contracts. They do treaties. It's a high and a distinguished form of law, and the European nations and the United States knew that Indian tribes were nations and that the proper method of dealing with them was through the treaties. And the treaties went back to the United States Senate for confirmation, just like international treaties. In fact, in the early days, up through the 1850s, there were more Indian treaties than there were treaties with foreign nations. And so the same process, same level of dignity was used. In the beginning, after the treaties, the racism, of course, was great, but the tribes were mostly on their reservations, and there wasn't that much conflict over the fishing because of the fact that there weren't that many non-Indian fishers. Starting, let's say, in the 1870s, by which time you had canning operations where you could send these magnificent fish worldwide. And so now you had real competitors with the tribal fishers. And people started to crack down on the tribes and started to blame shortages on the tribes. And so through the 1890s, the early 1900s, 20s, 30s, 40s, increasing crackdown on Indian fishers, calling them renegades. Who the hell are they to be fishing outside of state law? And we went into this period of the Indian fish wars that is essentially unlike any series of events in American history in terms of the violence and the wide spread of it throughout a particular region. The only real comparator that you can have, I think, is a series of events happening at about the same time over segregation in the South. Finally, when the Bolt decision was affirmed by the Supreme Court of the United States, the Supreme Court, in a footnote, said that other than some desegregation cases in the South, the civil disobedience by Washington state officials is the single greatest act of defiance of federal law witnessed in this century. And it was that. And the tribes had Supreme Court opinions in 1905, in 1942, acknowledging the treaties, acknowledging broad tribal rights, but the states kept enforcing in spite of those federal laws.
Yeah, the state fishery, you know, they were always really against us, you know, they were totally against us, you know, and that's where they, even up here, they, you know, on the shallow, they'd always give us a bad time. They come out, you get back up there on the res, you know, and, but then, when our beat saints were out there legal on the res, you know, fishing on the res, then you'd have about 3-4 state patrol, really fast, heavy boats, you know, just coming. They'd run them as tight as they can to the net, running to kind of scare the fish out.
So we used to fish right out here, and
Bellingham Bay. A lot of the guys had little seine boats at that time, you know, like 32-footers, 40-footers. They had a boundary line, I think it run from Point Francis to the Hoff Road, or they call Treaty Rock. And they used to have a boat called the Governor John R. Rogers. And they'd be patrolling there all the time, watching boats, make sure they didn't drift over. And we, you know, for years and years they'd done that to us. And even when Jim, my brother Junior, was running a boat out there, I fished with him. And I can remember us just picking it up so fast, you know, so it wouldn't drift, and everything was done by hand. And we'd pick up real fast in ebb tide, make sure we didn't drift over that line, because that boat would be standing there watching us.
They used to give us a hard time, the Governor John R. Rogers. Run that line all day long, running the, they were that strict to us that they made that game warden run the line all day long. Look at all the gas and everything and time we put out there just to keep us inside the bay here.
That was what it was all about, is the government wanted us to stay on reservation. We weren't supposed to have anything to do with the fish when they came off reservation, which was a bunch of crap. The fish were the fish that was promised to us in the treaty, you know.
Billy'd come by, he'd go down the river, you know, he'd fish at night and come back up the river in his canoe. And I fished up around the corner there. Then pretty soon that game warden come down and he said, you know, you can't fish down there. I said, oh. Erickson was his name, and he kept telling me, you gotta pull your net, you gotta get out. I said, okay, yeah. That's all I'd say, and I'd go back fish, you know. Then at 58, 59, I started fishing at the trestle, and that's when they first picked me up. And that's when they first picked me up, and then on, it was about every other day they was picking me up.
Ho hey hey ho hey oh hey oh hey oh hey.
You know, Nucci, I was telling Nucci, I said, they can't do this, Nucci. We'd hear the doors slam behind us. We were going in jail. And we always laugh about that. Billy, he's always saying, they can't do this to us, but they lock us up. The movement was us going to jail, you know, right here at the landing here. Fort Lewis is over there. The state game department was watching us 24 hours a day here. And we continued to fish. We fished every day. We continued to fish. We'd fought him every day. We'd fight him. We'd go to jail, get out of jail, come back, go to jail again, get out of jail, come back, fishing. We never gave up, you know, we just continued the struggle going on and on.
They started going to jail. There were fights along the river. I mean, these guys were out to hurt you. They weren't just doing simple things. They wanted to hurt you, and they wanted to hurt you bad. They'd carry these long flashlights, and it was like they were terrorizing the Indians. It was really a hard time and a real struggle, you know, and that's what's so angry is when these guys went to jail, we sat home and we starved as families, but, you know, it didn't matter to them. But I think the battles were hard. It was hard on families. And it wasn't, you know, just Nucci. It was Nucci's kids, Nucci's wife, Babe's family, you know, and Billy's family, and Don McLeod's family. You know, the kids are crying because their dads are being hit over the head. They're being put in jail, you know, because the state thinks they have the right to tell Indian people what to do. And grandparents were having to watch kids, you know, because when they could no longer fight, then the women had to go out and fight, like Jeanette, you know, Suzanne Sataika, Maisel Bridges, Allison, Suzette, you know, Billy Louise and us. We would all go out there and we would try to do the fight, you know, with the state of Washington. And when we got done, we didn't have anything. They took our boats, they took our nets. Did they take the fish too?
Yeah, they took everything.
They just took everything from you.
My dad was in jail. I think I was in the first grade, first or second grade. We lived in McKenna. Well, my mom said, well, the kids are going to stay at the landing with your grandma, and I'll take you in to get shoes. And we'll stop in and see your dad. And I said, oh boy, I get to go see my dad, you know, in jail. And so I went up there, and the jails were had metal doors and had little slants like that. That you could just look out with your eyes. And they had little things there. And so I was all excited until my mother lifted me up, and I could only see his eyes. And I started crying. And I tried to not cry, and because he started crying, and I was the only child there. I mean, all the other, like Porgy was there, and Marilyn and Josie, and, you know, they were all there to see their husbands, but I was the only child that was brought there, and because they had to get shoes. So after I see my dad, I went down the line and seen the rest of the guys in jail, and they tried to cheer me up. And my dad told my mom, don't bring the kids here, because they were having a hard time because they were eating 3 meals a day, and they knew that their children weren't eating like they were. They knew that their wives were struggling to put food on the table, and that was really a emotional breaking point in my life where I knew that, you know, something was wrong here.
And so, at a time in history, the 1960s, when the tribes were at their all-time low point, when Vine Deloria Jr. said, we better win this one because if we don't, there won't be another one, Indian people in the Northwest somehow found the resourcefulness to say no and take it to the limit.
You know, when they say you have no right, you prove that you do by going back to the river. And so there is, in October of 1965, it is a key turning point in what would happen in future actions.
They'd just come down on us, you know, the whole state of Washington. I mean, people from the other side of the mountain were called in, as Hank was talking about, and
but it was pre-announced, and there were, you know, the Indians were together in support, so there was. And unfortunately, there was primarily Indian women and Indian children, and then the renegade fishermen.
And I mean, we had a battle. I mean, it was clubbing and everything. I mean, it was just a knock-down, drag-out fight, and a lot of our kids and women were there, and oars, swinging oars, and battling, you know. And, you know, it just was a day to remember, you know.
On October 13th, 1965, I was 12, and this was we all went to school, and our dad really didn't want us to go down there for this fishing. And what it was an old ratted old fish, or rotten fish, put in this net, and so it was just a fishing. And they did that all the time. And anyway, so our dad said, no, they should just go home. And Mom said, oh, they can come down and get some experience. And so we got off the bus, and Dad picked us up and went down to the landing. There was a lot of women and children there. And So we're all just goofing around, and Mom says, all of a sudden, she said, look. And we turned around, and these game agents are coming out of the bushes behind. And these guys are big guys. And we see them in their jet boats, putting them in the water, and they're running with these jet boats and putting them in the water. And they ran that canoe. Now, my little brother can't swim. And, but luckily where they were at, when they ran that canoe, he could walk, you know, back. And then the attack was just on. They grabbed my cousin and was pounding her head into the, and we're young. She must have been about 14, and they're just slamming people around. They have Dorian in the bushes and Don George, and they got their shirts off and they're hitting them with these blackjacks, I think they call them. And they're grabbing my dad and my mom and I mean, it just went chaos. And my grandmother was just fear was in her face.
We were trying to figure out what the strategy was going to be for all of us, just trying to figure out, you know, we're going to fish, we're going to have fish-ins, we're going to do whatever we have to do to get the treaties of the United States up to the level of everybody's thinking and make the United States protect us. And so that was part of everything we were doing in U.S. versus Washington when it came about in 1974. But up until that time, we marched with Martin Luther King back in Washington, D.C. All of our people, Nisqually and Puyallup, and all of us, Muckleshoot, all of us marched in Washington, D.C. And with Martin Luther King, we were marching for our treaty rights and for our right as Indian people and our culture and our way of life. And we were trying to protect that, even though the civil rights movement was going full blast and Martin Luther King was bringing it to the front. We marched with him, and then after that we took over the BIA building in Washington, D.C. and we negotiated ourselves out of that. President Nixon was president at that time. You know, President Nixon was a good president as we could see. He didn't kill us in that building. We negotiated ourselves out of there. And we came to San Francisco and we took over Alcatraz Island. You know, that was one of the movements of all of our Indian people. And we negotiated ourselves out of there. We had a fish camp under the I-5 bridge, the only Puyallup River tribal land that was there left. They raided us that morning and threw us all in jail.
Took my wife to the hospital in Seattle, and on the way back home I was listening to the radio and they were saying, well, there's a big war going on in Puyallup. So I pulled off the road there, just where the road is, where the railroad bridge, then the old bridge on the other side. I got down there and there was State Patrol, SWAT teams from Tacoma, fish and game, not the fisheries, but the game department. And I suppose the fisheries was there too. And when I got out of my car, man, that tear gas hit my face. It was already gone, but it was still strong. So I walked over there. There was about 3 or 4 white people standing there watching too, and everybody kind of pulled out. I said, "Oh, I gotta go see who's down there, if anybody got hurt or what's going on." So I went down there, and the first one I ran into was old Hank Adams. And I was only there about 15, 20 minutes, and there was Billy Frank. Hank says, if I were you, I wouldn't stick around too long. We're going to burn that bridge. They went over and they had diesel and gas, and they poured it all around the base of that bridge. So I walked around downstream and then back around and got back to the railroad track, and then ka-whoom! Man, the gas and that bridge. I thought that bridge was all burned up. I didn't even hurt it.
One of the key elements and most effective, what makes As Long as the Rivers Run effective in the end, is the footage on the Puyallup encampment bust of 1970. The open aggression of the police force, police power of the state of Washington. These things moved the world beyond where it was at that point for Indian people, for Nisquallies and Puyallups, but also other Indian people.
And they gassed us that day. They gassed all of us that day. And it so happened that that day the United States Attorney General was watching us that day. And he got gassed too. You know, they all come down to see what was going on. They knew that the sheriff and the police and state patrol, all of them were going to come down on us. And so they all come to watch. The federal government come to watch. And they watched us. And they also got gassed that day. And that triggered the U.S. versus Washington. The United States said we're going to take on the U.S. versus Washington, and that's what started the Bolt decision.
And so the case goes before Judge George Hugo Bolt, a conservative judge appointed by President Eisenhower. The tribal attorneys wondered at the beginning of the case if they shouldn't try to have him removed from the case. But they went with him. They saw that in some of the early motions he was paying attention, that he didn't seem to have a predisposition, a mindset against the idea that the treaties might carry significant rights. The testimony of the elders was very important at trial. And they told stories about treaty time, and the state attorneys objected. And Judge Bolt let the testimony in because he understood that the oral tradition can send down very valuable information. And he heard them out. And on February 12th, 1974, Judge Bolt intentionally chose Lincoln's birthday as a statement of this opinion, which by any reasonable standard is one of the great moments in American law. Judge Bolt handed down a decision that the tribes can be proud of, but every American should be proud of, because it honored a sacred promise and it allowed dispossessed peoples, the least among us at that time, to have their most sacred rights protected.
I have so much respect for Judge Bolt that he was threatened, death threats, but he never took a step backwards. He made one of the greatest decisions that was ever made that set a precedent clear across the United States that tribes do exist, treaties do exist, tribes are sovereign, and now tribes are co-managers. But it was a great day for Indian people, you know, to not, it didn't stop what was happening, you know, it just aggravated, it made it worse to a way. But we had fought up to then, and we sure as hell wasn't going to quit fighting after that.
We started to expand out to reclaim what we thought was rightfully our treaty areas. And each time we expanded out to our various areas, we were then experiencing all of these emotions where there were a lot of upset people. Just didn't think it was right for Indian people to practice their treaty rights. It just ain't right. We started getting these threats, and then we started experiencing actual assaults. We were willing to face the enemy. You can't stop me. This is my right. The threat was that they're going to come down and raid our camp and teach us some manners. The hour came. They actually gave us the hour when they're coming, so be ready. Well, okay, so what? Let them come. American Indian movement is here. Us combined with AIM, commonly called AIM. No, what's the word? Let them come. We dare them to come. And so at the appointed hour, AIM pulls out their big war drum. Started preparing, singing the war song. You could hear this echoing all over the community. State fisheries did come. They said, we never saw them, but we had people were stay outpost, watch. And you tell us what you see. Boy came, says, they're here, but they heard your drum and they left. Retreat.
And the tribal leadership in those days, you know, led by Nisqually and Tulalip and Squaxin and Muckleshoot and those guys, when they led that effort and they fought for their rights, it changed reluctantly the recognition of our status as governmental entities. The 50% rule, that we preserved up to 50% of the resource, that we did not relinquish it. We reserved it. It was politically and legally, it was a change of the guard, of the attitude towards Indian people.
And I always get surprised because who was it? Was it Joseph? Said, I'll fight no more. That isn't true. We've had to fight continually. You know, even if it's a different time and things have changed, they still haven't changed much. We just do it in a different place, not on the banks of the river, but the courthouse. We're willing to sit down, we're willing to listen, we're willing to negotiate, but we're not willing to not be a sovereign tribe. We're not willing for you to give us trinkets and beads anymore. We have access to some of the best attorneys around, and we do know where the steps of the courthouse is. And we will go there, you know, those days are gone.
We're now seen as leaders. They're now saying, if you want this done, get the tribe involved. If you want to make this thing happen, the tribe is how it's going to happen. And so they look to us as leaders now. They respect that we care.
But I think the Bolt decision really opened the door for the tribes, you know, and so, and I hope for, and I believe in some of that is Bolt had, you know, everyone has to enhance the salmon runs, you know, so I think that's probably one of the greatest aspects of the Bolt decision, you know, restore the salmon for everyone, you know.
And I got to get this message down to our younger people that are here now. These things just didn't grow out of the water. They came out of blood from the tribes. Our guys got shot at and they got beat up. They got equipment stolen, tore up. Just so much happened on there, but we're still in there fighting.
When I'm in a meeting and I think about my parents, I think about the people, I think about what happened on the river. I mean, because actually they were fighting for the treaty rights, for the freedom for people to, you know, exercise their rights. And so, yeah, every day, yeah, I mean, we deal with issues like that, and I think about that. You know, it's always there. We need to learn to live on this earth and to take care of her because she's dying. And if she dies, then we die.
So I think that the future is up to the coming generations to make that determination. Hopefully they're going to follow their heart. Be an Indian first. Follow that Indian heart, and it'll take you in the right direction. Take it with confidence. Build your mind and your strength. Use what opportunity we have now to help to build on those policies. The choice is yours.
I'm 78 years old and I'm still out there fishing and crabbing every day, you know, when we can get out there with my niece and my nephews. And they all say, "Is Uncle out?" And he said, "Yeah, Uncle's still out there yet. Gee, we better get out there and keep an eye on him." You know, anybody that works together always better than fighting. That's what I try to teach everybody. Respect yourself, respect others, and a little love will go a long way. When I was young and raising my family and everything, I hated to miss a day of fishing. I just couldn't think of not being out there with the rest of the boys. You know, I noticed that much. It hurt my feelings if something happened that I couldn't go out fishing one day. Because we're all fishermen, all my relations, all my good friends.
But I've always been on the boat with him. He tells me stories about me being on a boat with him. He says he always used to take diapers in a bottle, so he'd have to take care of me while we were fishing. That's the story he says. I don't know if it's true or not, but I hope so. It's kind of all I've done because it's what he's done. So it's probably the only thing I would do because I love it so much. And now my son's into it and he's fishing off on his own. So I'm 50-some years old. My dad's 85. You know, and when the wind blows, he calls me, "Are you all right?" You know, and that, I think that's pretty neat. But I'm probably going to do the same thing to my son when he's 50-some years old, and hopefully I'm 80-some, saying, "Are you all right?" and everything fine. You know, fishing's it doesn't seem like work. It's just a way of life. I think, and I expect, and you have to expect this as a fisherman. I expect great things down the road as fishing, or I wouldn't be in it.
So we have to, you know, seriously talk about that at some point in time here, because we're fishery managers, our tribes.
And I think the way the tribes are managing the fisheries now are pretty good. That there's always going to be a sustainable fishery in this area because of the way that I think the tribes manage it. They're a lot more sophisticated than the state is in managing the resource. So I have high hopes for the future.
And here we are today. We're managing our resource. We have the infrastructure, the best infrastructure. These 20 tribes have the best infrastructure in the world is right here in our country. We're managing this sound, Puget Sound down here. We're managing all of our watersheds and rivers. And that's what we're doing right here, to see all of our fishermen fishing and enjoying life. This is what it's all about. Every day I come down here when our fishermen are fishing, it just makes me feel good that our boys and girls are fishing on the river, and nobody is coming down arresting them. They regulate themselves, and that's why you see us pulling our nets out today. We don't put them back in till next week. Let the salmon go up and spawn. And this is a regulation that we do, and we're proud of that. Before the decision in 1974, the state of Washington just took as many fish as they could. They never regulated anything. Till 1974, the federal judge come in and said it's going to be regulated, and it is today. And that's who we are. We're Indian people. We've always regulated our natural resource. All of our whole thousands of years, we have regulated this country. We regulated our trees. Our medicines are all over here, you know, and our culture is with us today. Our language and our dances and our drums, all of these things are what makes us whole. We want to continue to work with all of our people around us, you know, to keep our water, keep our trees, you know, keep our habitat, you know, keep fighting for the salmon, keep fighting for our animals, the food chain of life. You know, we look at this river and it's still flowing, you know, and as long as it's flowing, we're going to be all right.
Hey,